Good morning. So my topic today is titled Be Right or Be Love. And I figured since it was February, it's pretty much the last end of it, but it's a good time to talk about love. And how many of you have studied the 12 powers of unity? Let's see the hands. So many of you have not. Well, there are 12 powers, and love is one of them. And John is the disciple. And the color, each one has a color attached to it. And for love, I thought it would be red, but it's not. It's pink. And the pink stands for nurturing. So I'm going to give you the definition of it according to the powers. Love is not passive or sentimental. It is an active, dynamic force that fosters spiritual awakening. John exemplifies love as the guiding energy of divine understanding, helping humanity evolve beyond intellectual reasoning into higher spiritual awareness. In this sense, divine love is not simply an abstract concept, but an ever-present reality that can be cultivated and expressed through intentional spiritual practice. And then I'm going to give you a proverb, 10:12. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all offenses. Then, show me the seeds you sow and the thoughts you think, and I can foretell the manner of your harvest, for it is the same in our mind world or in the soil world. And that is by Myrtle Fillmore. And then here's my writing on it. Be right or be love. As life passes and I have opportunities to observe my behavior, I reflect on all the things I recognize that I did not before. I know loving and being loved has always been one of my personal driving factors. The feeling of love so permeates my whole being with a warmth that it is beyond description. Yet so many times I gave it up. I needed to get into the last word because I needed to argue a point. I wanted to be right. I wanted that more than the feeling of love and peace. Now, please do not get me wrong. I am not saying to give in to everyone and everything in your life. I am saying I now ask myself, what is this worth to me? Is it worth an argument? If I deem it not to be worthy, I let it go. I find that letting certain things go bring me more peace, friendship, and love, rather than fighting to prove my rightness. That is the question we can each ask ourselves. Is it worth being right over being loving? To thine own self be true. And that to me was really, really a big deal, as to what I choose, because I realized that I think I really didn't understand empowerment. Like some of us think about power. Oh, I'm going to lord over one. But empowerment comes when you can take a situation that is somehow becoming volatile and you can take it to another level. And you can switch that whole dynamic that is going on by your behavior. That is true empowerment. I had the privilege this week of doing something that I just really believe was in divine right order. I got a call. I do funerals for a particular funeral home in the St. Louis area. And I got a call the other day to do a service. And I always contact the next of kin, which happened to be the son, and the son lost his father. And what I do when I do a funeral service is I write, I write a really beautiful introduction and closing, but I ask the family members to introduce me to their loved one, because through them, that's how I get to know the person that this service is for. Well, I usually then if they're willing, I say, if you're willing, would you please talk at the service exactly as you spoke to me? Because nobody could do it better than you. It was your father or your spouse or your child or whatever. And most of the time, the people say yes. And if not, I say, I'm happy to read it for you, but I want to use your words because you are the loved one. Well, this young man proceeded to tell me a story. And he said, when I was 2 years, I told him I was going to be talking about him today, no names. And I said, your ears will be ringing. He said, when I was 2 years old, my mother and father got divorced. And he said, my father would see me every other weekend, and I always looked forward to it. And he said, my dad moved out to the woods. He never remarried. He never dated. And literally, he lived without electricity and running water for over 40 years. And he said he was a very clean man. He took sponge baths, and he was a brilliant mechanic, but this was how he chose to live. And he had like 3 or 4 neighbors that he was very close with. And he said, I just loved my father. He was just such a kind man. And we didn't get to see each other as much as I would have liked, and I didn't understand it then. But as we got older, we began to build a relationship. And as I began to see the situation more clearly, I realized that my mother was a narcissist. And things really changed and all of this happened, but my father and I developed a very, very close relationship. And my daughter and him, he has a little girl who is 8, and they developed this very close relationship. And we just did so many things together. He came in from the country to come to every birthday party and every family event. And he just went on, and he's crying, and I'm crying as he's telling me this story. I was just so touched because there was something about it. And what it was that was so poignant about his story was that I have known so many people that I'll say, we'll talk about parents or whatever, and they go, oh, I'm estranged from my parents. I don't speak to them. And I might ask why, and well, he wasn't around for me when I grew up, so I don't have time for him now. But not this young man. This young man opened his heart, and he let his father in. And his father and him were able, because this young man opened his heart, to form a bond, to form a love, to form something so much bigger than you could imagine because of that act of not judging. And then I'm talking to this young man while he's in the car with his 8-year-old, and she picked out 2 prayers that she wanted said. She wanted the Mary prayer and Our Father, and she wanted to say them. And then when she heard that her father was going to speak, she said, and I want to speak too. And that little girl stood up and said these 2 prayers and read what she wrote about her grandfather. And her father spoke the story like he told to me, and there was not a dry eye in the room. And it was one of the most beautiful services that I have ever been part of. And I told him over and over, you do not realize how special you are. And it was like his daughter picked this up from him. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about being right or being loved. See, sometimes we don't see the whole picture. When we're children, what do we know about a narcissistic parent or a narcissist? Or the parents that might keep the letters from the other parent from the child, and the child never knows the parent was trying to contact them. But that's not the point. The point was that that young man didn't hold a grudge. He was able to open his heart and let love come into his life, and it enriched his life. And when I heard how he talked about his father, I said to the people in that room, what more can you ask from a life than to be loved like that by your child and your grandchild? I mean, to me, that is the greatest gift that you can ever get. And you don't get it by being right. I have never been to a service where I have heard someone get up and say, oh my gosh, I loved Mary so much because she was always right. Have you ever heard anyone say anything like that? But people remember what we give and what we do. Maybe just taking that moment to smile. See, here's the problem. You know, what you read, was that the Daily Word, what you read about how we've changed? I have to pull that one up because that was fabulous about some of our old ways. Because see, I think the old ways, I think if you read the Bible, truly, we made God in our image. You know, God got mad at because what the people did, and so he killed all the people and told Noah, go out and build a boat, I'm going to make some new people. I mean, if we went out and killed all the people we didn't like, we would be in jail, but it was okay for God. Right? And then I think Sodom and Gomorrah, he turned the woman into salt, Lot's wife, because she turned back. And Moses couldn't go to the promised land because he tapped a rock. I mean, everybody got punished for not behaving. Now, who does that sound like? But it certainly doesn't sound like the God of our understanding, does it? So, maybe, you know, that's what I started doing. I really did. I started thinking, okay, who do I want to act more like? Do I want to act more like people, or do I want to act more like God? People want to hold grudges. They want to blame. They want to have an excuse for everything. It wasn't my fault, it was Dee's fault. This is my favorite form of apology. I'm really sorry that happened, but I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't done this. Anybody ever gotten apologies like that? And I have to say I'm guilty of giving some years ago. I mean, that, my friends, is not an apology. It's a blame. Because I am responsible for my own behavior regardless of what you did or what I perceive that you did. Because I might have perceived something totally differently than what really happened. So, you know, I've talked about this before, about loving, but not maybe liking. We don't need to like everyone's behavior. Excuse me. Everyone's behavior may not be in alignment with our own thoughts. But we can love them. We can wish them the highest good. I'm not happy with the way our country is going right now. I'm not happy seeing 5-year-olds picked up and put into detention centers, and now I just read they're buying warehouses to put people in. So they want to detain 2,000 people a day. I mean, like a quota of fine. I mean, where does their quota come from? This is crazy. But I just keep praying. Maybe the light will come through. Maybe all of these things we talk about, maybe love can change what's happening. Maybe we can make sure then when we see, I mean, we're going through it right now. Our son is engaged to a beautiful Thai woman. Well, guess what? Thailand is one of the 75 countries on the list of people that can't come into this country. So, you know, I said to my son, I hope we get to meet her. He goes, I hope you and Dad are still alive when she's going to be able to be here, because who knows? Now, if it was Sweden or Norway, I guarantee you they could come in, because we need to look at the 75 countries that are banned. And so this is an especially hard time for us to love. But it's like maybe we need to move, like to the penthouse, where we can go above the fray and look at it from a different perspective. Maybe it's time for us to stop judging our government by how our personal stock portfolio looks, because that's what people have done for years. Things are going well. I am financially prospering. Therefore, I like what's going on. What about the rest of the world? What about all the other things that are going on around us? Why do we say we don't care if an elected official has morals or not, or if they tell the truth? If they don't tell the truth in one thing, guess what? They're not going to tell the truth in something else. To me, all of that is love. It isn't loving when you are not faithful to your word. And we can make a difference. How we can be, what do they have, these influencers on what, TikTok? Is that where they are, and they get money for being influencers? I mean, that's their business, right? Are there any young people in here? There you go. Now, you must know the influencers. They're on TikTok. They influence makeup, they influence this, and everyone follows them. Well, maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to go to TikTok, the TikTok for older people or something like that, and be influencing. But can't we influence people? If someone says, those damn immigrants, how many of you have watched The American Revolution and the West by Ken Burns? If you haven't, please go to the PBS Passport and watch it. Because I want to tell you, friends, our beautiful country, we didn't just settle it, we stole it. We stole it from the Mexicans, and we stole it from the Native Americans. The Mexicans own the whole entire west part of the United States and Texas. And the Native Americans had the rest. And we invaded and took it over, including George Washington. It's all there, right there. Ken Burns laid it all out. So when we think that we are the American exceptionalism, what if we used world exceptionalism? We are all exceptional. Every human being on this planet has been created by the same creator that created you and Jesus Christ. And every person on this planet deserves to be loved, regardless of their color or their country or their size or their shape. And if there are people in our midst who don't understand it, maybe it's time for us to be speaking. Maybe it's time, I've often thought about this. Do I write on Facebook about my thoughts? Maybe some of the people in some of the areas I speak won't like it. And I finally decided, in fact, I got a comment from Sue on one of the things that I had written, and it was really nice to hear. But I decided, you know what? I don't care, because I'm going to do what I can do right now. There's some things I can do. I can stand in a No Kings whatever. I volunteered. My husband and I are both going to work on Election Day. There's one coming up April 7th. I can write on Facebook. There are things we all can be doing when we're in the midst and people start talking about, like, for example, there's a woman in my circle that I know, and her daughter adopted 2 Mexican children. And I said something about, isn't this awful what's happening to the immigrants at the border? She goes, I don't think so. I don't think those people should be allowed to be in. I said, well, I do. We're all immigrants, really. And she said, well, if you feel so, if you're so much for them, why don't you bring them to your house? And I said, well, I don't think I can house thousands of people. My house isn't that big. But I said, I just find it interesting that you have 2 Mexican adopted grandchildren and that you'd be so anti-immigrant. I mean, I don't get it. It just, some of the stuff doesn't make sense. So we all can speak out. And guess what? Someone might get annoyed with you. But so what? I'm annoyed with them. I'm annoyed with what's going on. And to me, it all goes back to love. Because Jesus didn't turn anyone away. So when someone starts talking about that, and you know that they're, quote, a good Christian, maybe you could bring it up. Have you, read the teachings of Jesus Christ? Have you heard that he says forgive 70 times 7? Love your neighbor as yourself, and he doesn't specify color? I mean, it's time that we all start loving. And here's what I'm going to challenge you to. I'm going to challenge you to be as loving as you can to those who most irritate you. Because it's easy to be kind to those you love. So I'm going to end with my poem, Be Right or Be Love. Sometimes it is hard. We have to make a choice, what to say, how to say, a way to use our voice. At times, I want to be right so very bad about the very thing At times, I want to be right so very bad that it causes me to respond and feel so very sad about the very thing I want to be right about. Sometimes so much I am ready to fight for that very thing. All it does is cause me to feel that I really goofed, made a bad deal. Other times I choose love above all, rather than argue, and then fall into the trap of regret. I turn away, choose to forget. Whatever it is that is causing me grief, letting it go brings relief. In the end, I get to choose what I win and what I lose. Perhaps sometimes choosing right is the choice I might make because it is worth it to me. It is my choice, and it always will be. Thank you. And now let's just get ready to do a little short meditation. Would you play a little music? So just take a moment and take a deep breath, or whatever it is that causes you to relax. And sink into your chair and let go all of the thoughts, all of the little pesky things that we humans are so filled with. And take a moment to imagine. Imagine John Lennon's song, Imagine. Just imagine a world where there were no boundaries, no state lines, no country lines, where it was all just one big, beautiful, pink ball of love, like a bubble. And take a moment and place yourself right in the middle of that bubble and feel the warmth and the love and the hugs, the smiles, the laughter, the tears of joy that surround you. The feeling of warmth as though the sun is beating down you on a beautiful 80-degree day, warming every spot in your body. And you can literally feel your heart aglow with the warmth of pure, beautiful love. And it feels so good. You were so relaxed. There is such a feeling of calm and peace. And all needs are met. No one is hungry. No one is fearful. And no one is afraid of the other. And now, just for a moment, you feel yourself floating. And you're floating above this whole mass of humanity. White, brown, black, blue, green, purple. People of every shade and color and size and shape. Smiling, loving, laughing, and knowing in truth that they are all one. And as you are watching, it is as though a miracle occurs. All of a sudden, there are no people. It is just one big ball, one beautiful pink, glowing ball of love. And at that moment, you're aware that there is no separation. We are truly one. And you are part of that oneness. That oneness that makes us whole. And now you just very gracefully slip back into that beautiful pink ball and feel that glow all over you. And now begin to become aware of the seat upon which you are sitting. And you can wiggle your fingers and your toes and listen to the music. But keep that beautiful pink bubble around you for always, because it is your gift. And when you are ready, gently open your eyes and focus on something different or something you have not noticed